You still have the voicemail saved. You know the one. You've never listened to it again. You just know it's there. Somewhere in your phone, a version of someone still exists, and you keep it the way you'd keep a photograph you never look at, just to know it hasn't disappeared. You tell yourself it's sentimental. It isn't. The real reason you can't delete it is far stranger, and it has almost nothing to do with the person who left it. It has to do with something your brain has been doing for 60,000 years. Why would keeping a stranger's recorded voice feel like keeping the person alive? Go back to a cave in the mountains of what is now northern Iraq. The year, roughly, is 1960. An archaeologist named Ralph Selecki is excavating a site called Shanidar. He finds a Neanderthal skeleton curled in the dirt. Around and beneath the bones, he finds clusters of pollen. Not one flower. Several species, clustered in patterns that don't match how pollen normally scatters in a cave. Pollen from flowers that don't grow wild anywhere near that chamber. Selecki concludes something extraordinary. Someone laid flowers on this body before covering it with earth. The press runs with it. Newspapers call it the flower burial. A headline is born, and with it, an entire reimagining of who Neanderthals were. Not brutes, not grunting animals barely distinguishable from the landscape. Mourners. Decades later, researchers pushed back. Some argued the pollen could have blown in through cave openings, or been carried by burrowing rodents that build seed caches underground, or simply been tracked in by later disturbance from excavation itself. The debate isn't fully settled and probably never will be. But here's what almost nobody disputes anymore. Flowers or no flowers, Neanderthals buried their dead deliberately. Not accidentally, not by leaving a body where it fell and walking away. They dug a space. They placed a body inside it, in a position that wasn't random, limbs arranged, head turned a certain way. Then they covered it. That's not an animal reaction to a corpse rotting in the open. That's a decision, repeated across generations, in a species that didn't have language the way you understand language today. An archaeologist named Paul Pettit has spent much of his career mapping exactly when and where this behavior starts. His research traces the earliest deliberate burials back through the Middle Paleolithic, tens of thousands of years before anything you'd recognize as organized religion existed. No priests, no scripture, no promise of an afterlife written down anywhere, because writing itself was still tens of thousands of years away. And yet, the behavior is already there, showing up independently across different populations, in different caves, on different continents. Dig a space. Place the body with intention. Mark somehow that this one mattered more than the animals whose bones get left where they drop. Why dig a hole for someone who can no longer feel the difference between dirt and open air? Here's the part that should unsettle you a little. The person being buried gets nothing out of it. They're gone. Whatever ritual happens around that body isn't for them anymore, and it never was. Not really. It's for the people still standing there, still breathing, still watching the ground get filled back in. Burial isn't primarily about the dead. It's about what the living do with the unbearable fact that someone they depended on no longer exists, and somehow the world is expected to keep turning anyway. Attachment is the key word here, and it isn't a poetic one. It's a specific, load-bearing piece of human wiring, studied and mapped in laboratories, not just described in eulogies. From the moment you're born, your brain builds a working map of the people it depends on for survival. Where they are, what their voice sounds like, how they'll react if you cry, if you laugh, if you're in danger and need someone to come running. That map isn't stored somewhere abstract, filed away like a memory of a fact you once learned. It's built into the same neural circuitry that tracks physical space, the same systems that help you remember where your front door is without thinking about it. Your brain doesn't file mother or best friend as an idea. It files them the way it files a location, somewhere you can go, somewhere that exists, reliably, whether or not you're currently looking at it. So what happens when that location is suddenly, permanently gone? Grief researchers have spent decades trying to answer that question with actual data instead of assumption, and one of the clearest voices in that field is a psychologist named George Bonanno at Columbia University. For most of the 20th century, the dominant idea in psychology was that grief had to be worked through. in a fixed sequence of stages, that you had to actively process pain on a schedule, or it would fester somewhere inside you, waiting to cause damage lay.